Every day we are bombarded with the spectacle, mostly stories of how celebrities are discovered and rose to fame overnight. I'm here to tell you that these overnight success stories usually occur over the course of many years. Throughout the next couple of weeks, I'll be uploading interviews with people who have jobs in the film and television industry. Writers, directors, cinematographers, journalists, all of them will tell their story of how they got their job in the film industry. My first interview is with a sound designer named Andrew Bellety. Sound design is the process of specifying, acquiring, manipulating, or generating audio elements. It is employed in a variety of disciplines such as filmmaking, television production, post-production, sound, art, and video game software development. Andrew Bellety has worked mostly in film and music videos. He has worked on McLeod's Daughters, an Australian television series, along with Australian films such as Hating Alice and Ashley and Better Than Sex. He has also worked in Indian cinema, most recently a film called Bhopal, A Prayer for Rain, which stars Martin Sheen, Misha Barton and Carl Penn. Every day you are told of these overnight successes. Now in no way am I telling you these people didn't work hard to get to where they are. This is just the propaganda that you were fed. For the first time on film industry propaganda for the hard worker, here's a different kind of propaganda.
My name's Andrew Bellety. I'm a sound designer and a lecturer in screen sound. I started as a professional musician. That's all I'd ever done was music, and I got into engineering, producing for bands and concerts, and I ended up doing classical music and jazz and really broadening out from just commercial pop music. But it got to and I was also playing a hell of a lot, and I was with a couple of very big bands, and it got to the point where I had to make some decisions in life as to continue that line of work, or whether it was going to be worth it or not. And I think at that time the wave of commercial music was kind of peaking in Australia, and I could sense that things were going to get a little bit tougher. So I kind of jumped off at a point where it was still very good, and I was having a pretty good living out of music. But a lot of friends of mine had already moved into film, and I decided to follow their lead. My first job in the industry was probably doing short films and playback for music videos, and that was in 1989 in the film industry. I was working at Film Australia, so I was surrounded by film people, and yes, I made friends who were kind of semi-professional like myself at the time, and we jumped in with a bunch of friends. They constantly change. My goals have shifted and changed and moved, but I've always had the one goal in mind, which was to be autonomous and to be able to have the freedom to do what I want to do. And I think through my life, I think the times where that got tough was when I was trying to achieve a career structure which meant I was working and earning lots of money and working way too much, and trying to achieve these career goals. And then when I realised that actually it's much better to achieve creative, some sort of creative fulfillment, and that's when I started reassessing my goals. So I'm quite a different person these days. I'm not commercially motivated, and I have quite different motivations, and the quality of my work has improved enormously. Yeah, well, I think that it's not only making money, but a lot of people get into it thinking that you're going to have this really great creative and collaborative experience. I think a lot of people end up being bitterly disappointed, because at the end of the day the collaboration can be much less than it actually is, because you have a collaborative industry, but also you have the auteur theory, which is a director wants to do it and he wants people or she wants people to collaborate, but as long as you're collaborating along their lines and with their vision. So you have a singular vision but a collaboration, so at times that is at odds with itself, so it can be a little tricky. So you're told that it's going to be a creative. I mean, some people go into it thinking that they're going to make a lot of money. A lot of my friends moved straight over to California, and yes, some of them have. Dion Beebe, for example, he always had it in his mind to be a successful commercial cinematographer, and he is. And other friends kind of had it in their mind to be really successful and that varies, how that pans out in the end. But I lost that very early on, and I've always wanted to be autonomously creative, like to be able to make my own decisions and to do work that I feel happy with doing. No, I was doing it for myself from the very beginning because I don't like working for companies. I was offered a lot of jobs, like jobs at the start, but I decided very early on in life that I don't like working for companies. So I worked for myself, and I always did. And I was lucky at the time when I first left film school, because I started out working at Film Australia, then went to film school, and kind of early 90s there was a big .com boom happening, and I kind of rode that wave a little bit with sound in multimedia and all this type of stuff. There was lots of things going on, there was lots of work. So I pretty much jumped onto a pretty fast running conveyor belt, so there was a lot of stuff happening and lots of films. So I pretty soon had, it didn't take me long to get 10 feature films under my belt, and yeah, so it was pretty good. In this industry, for me, it's a matter of doing what you want to do and being creative. And in that way, I think that the director probably still has the box seat. And I've realised that over the years, that even friends of mine who are very, 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 very successful sound designers, I was talking to Skip Leavesey, who's a friend who does, Coen Brothers and Scorsese and Spike Lee, does all those types of films. He still has very limited creative kind of output because it's so constrained by studio whims. And for me, the life got much more difficult the bigger the films that I started doing. Then the problems start coming in with all these other unexpected things about finance and
the politics.
Yeah, not only the politics of surviving the film itself, but whether the film's going to get off the ground, whether it's going to get off the ground and then stop again. And at one level, the small budget stuff is much, much, much easier because people get the money and they make it. Whereas when the stakes are high, you've got big budget films, there's so many more problems. Yeah, there is a misplaced sense of a couple of things. One is that people think that it's a very glamorous industry and that we're all extremely well paid. I remember having a conversation with a friend who was a motor mechanic, and he said, it's such a hard job, and I don't really like it a lot of the time, and what am I getting, $80 an hour, but you work in the film industry, peanuts. And I'm thinking at the time I would have been struggling to be earning $45 an hour. This is 10 years ago, whatever. And it was just such a funny thing to come from the friends of mine who are plumbers and electricians and motor mechanics, and they're earning $90 an hour. And really, for a sound designer in this country to earn $60 to $70 an hour, you'd be doing well. I thought it was much more collaborative, and I thought it would be much more creative. So I think when I finally started working for real, I soon realised that at the bottom end, when people don't have any money, then it is extremely creative and a lot of fun. But when money is involved, the more money that becomes involved, the more conservative the outlook is. So the most fun I have is on no budget things, and I still do short films and like crazy little projects, little art house things. Otherwise I'd go crazy, I'd go mad. And because when you get the big films, they want less and less and less. They just want it to be more and more and more palatable to a general public, and that means we have less fun. I think that one of the most important things is if you want to. Australia is so small that it has like what I call a cottage industry. It has people who are making things, and it's all very small and very safe. But once you get on big films, and especially with American money, and I've worked a lot in India and China, it's very commercial and very hardcore, and a level of professionalism is required that you cannot learn. You almost have to be born with it. I remember when I worked, I'll use Dion as an example again. When I worked with him at film school, he'd turn up in a suit, and he had a level of professionalism from the get-go. So when he went to Los Angeles, it was a seamless transition. You have to have confidence and professionalism, and you have to have a certain amount of bravado as well as talent to back it up. So it has to be an overall package. You can't be an introvert and talented and think you're going to really burst out on the scene. It's a lot of hard work, and I think the professionalism is something that you have to learn on set, and dealing with very high level people who are ruthless in their own way. I mean, they're professionals as well. So you've got professional producers, and I mean, some of the experiences I've had with line producers, you know, talking about contracts and stuff, it's just amazing. Like, it's really confronting when you have people talking to you like that, but then you have to develop a thick skin, and you have to become very professional in order to deal with that. And you don't learn any of that at film school. I mean, it's not about just recording the sound or cutting the tracks or whatever. It's about a lot of other things, and they're the things that you either are born with or you have to learn very quickly. I still don't, I never think that I know anything. So, I mean, even though I've studied, and I continue to practice at all levels, at feature films and documentaries and short films, I never lose that enthusiasm, and I never think that I know everything. And I think people can spot that, and they, producers and directors really value honesty and integrity in people, and they're willing to pay for that. And I think the only advice I'd give anybody is to stick to what they love, and also don't compromise when it comes to money or anything. Don't compromise. Don't bend. Stick to what you want to do.